All right, guys, we are live. Thank you for all of you who are on the stream now. Can you all hear me okay? I switched cameras. I have a little bit of a different setup. I have a camera up here and I have a microphone over here. Can all of you hear me okay? I can see all of this, all of everything you guys are saying over here on the right-hand side. So if you see me looking down, I'm still paying attention to you in the camera. If you can hear me okay and it sounds okay, say something in here. Okay, yes, we can hear you just fine. All right, perfect. So thanks, guys, for showing up. First thing I want to ask everybody, I want to start doing this on all the lives regularly, is anytime we start doing this, let me know in the comments below if you have recently been hired, if you recently had a fitness test, an interview, anything like that. Let me know how it went. Give your feedback in the comments or in the chat here on the side about what it was like for you, any sort of unique or weird questions you had, anything like that. I'm going to scan through the chat here and see if I can see anybody that said anything like that. I don't see anything right now. So if you do, just throw it in there. These chats, obviously I say this on every live too, because I don't want anybody to get upset or offended. It scrolls through pretty quick on my side. So I'm going to try and answer everybody's questions, assuming I can. But if for some reason I miss it, that is not in any way mean I'm trying to skip over you or not pay attention to what you have to ask. So a couple things today. So tonight I have a few announcements. Let me pull them up here. A few things. So the first thing, a lot of you recently have been asking me about coaching, getting ready for a interview, getting ready for a psych test, a polygraph, whatever it is that you have coming up. And I've always told you guys that I don't really do that simply because I don't think it's fair to charge people a ton of money to sit down. So one thing that I did begin to do on this channel, and I just made them live the other day, is I did memberships. That way, if you decide that you want to sign up for a membership for the channel, it'll give you a little thing, a little icon next to your name that says that you are a member, and I will make sure any question you post in these lives, you get priority. I will answer any question coming up about an interview or life or whatever it is that you have going on. You will get the priority. I will post the link right here, right now in the chat. I decided to make the membership $4.99. I feel like that's a pretty reasonable. I feel like that's a pretty reasonable price, $5 a month. If that's something you're interested in, great, do it. If not, I totally get it. That's completely fine. But just know that'll give you priority because a lot of you have been asking questions. So second big thing is a lot of you have been asking me about fitness stuff, how to get in shape, what workouts you should be doing, how you should be eating, all of that kind of stuff. And so I went on a big search. I personally don't have time to go through and make a whole bunch of like an entire fitness regimen or program for everybody. So I actually, if any of you are familiar with or have heard of the website Firefighter Furnace, it is run by a guy named Donnie Pearson. He is actually a current full-time career firefighter and longtime fitness guy. He has created his own program called Firefighter Furnace. This guy actually knows what he's doing. He actually knows fitness, but on top of that, he is a firefighter. So he knows exactly what you need to be doing, what it's going to be like in a fire, what are the best exercises, what are the best ways to get in shape. And it is a paid program. And so he gave me a link, and I will give you a code if that is something that you're interested or something that you want or something that you think would be good. The Firefighter Now code is for 20% off. So I'll put the link in below here. Let me pull it up for you. Here is the link to it. And then the discount code, and I'll put it in the description for this as well. Let's see. Is going to be Firefighter Now 20. So Firefighter Now 20, and that will get you that. So, all right, enough of those announcements. There might be a couple other things I have to announce or talk about. Some things I might need your guys' help with. But right now, I want to start answering some of your guys' questions. I see a ton of people in the chat already. So let's start here. The first question by Elijah Floyd. Hi, Elijah. I don't think I've ever seen you in the chat before. Says, I always wonder, do firefighters get paid weekly or every 2 weeks? It depends on where you are. Probably depends on where you are. Where I work and where most places that I know, it's bi-weekly, so every 2 weeks. So that's how most of our, but I'm sure there's some random, I'm going to say that, and somebody's going to tell me about how their department does it differently. So I'm sure there might be one out there that pays weekly. Also, Anthony Vaccaro just donated $5 to the channel. Thank you, Anthony. He says, just completed the hiring process for Washington, D.C. with help from your videos. Thank you and stay safe. Congratulations, Anthony. Good for you. I actually used to work with a guy who was at DC Fire. I think he said he was there for 2 or 3 years. This was probably 6 years ago, last time I saw this guy. It's been a while. But he was an awesome guy. He loved it when he was there. The only reason he left is his wife was from the Cleveland area, and so he came back here to live with his wife and got hired at a different department. But he was a great guy. He had nothing but good things to say about DC. I'm sure you were going to see some crazy stuff, some cool stuff. So congratulations, though, to you for putting in the work and doing that. And thank you for the $5 donation to the channel. If you would like to donate to the channel, down below there is the little dollar sign. And you can do, I think it's called a super chat or something like that. Possessed asks, when is it appropriate to discuss pay and benefits on a fire department? Great question. So for most fire departments, it should be public information. If you're not sure how much that fire department pays, call and ask. You're a public employee. All of that stuff should be public. You might have to do a request to find out how much individual people make, but the general salary should be out there as free, accessible information. The other thing too is if they're a union, I don't know how it works in every state with unions in every state, but for example, in Ohio, CERB, I can't remember what that stands for. It's essentially an organization that manages all the different unions. I'm probably butchering that, but you can go on and you can find any fire department's union contract, and it will lay out exactly what the terms of their benefits, the terms of their pay, all of that kind of stuff for the different years of being a firefighter and experience and whatnot. So that stuff is out there. It shouldn't be something that you need to bring up, but again, this is a job. So that's the other thing I want to talk about with pay too. A lot of people get real sensitive and weird about pay. This is your job. This is how you're going to be making money. Don't feel weird asking people about that. It's something that's important and something that you should know. L Dog Love says, love your videos. Thank you. With the Miami condo collapse, anyone that were to go on vacation, would their vacation be canceled? It might be. That's going to be one of those union contract things. I know some departments mandate certain amounts of overtime in a given sort of emergency. Depending, they might. Jeff Schaefer asks, can you explain preparation tips for EMT school? Sure, Jeff, good question. So if you're getting ready for EMT school, the first thing I would recommend that you do is just become familiar with general. If you have no idea, if you've never taken a biology class or anything like that, you've never really been in the medical field or don't really know anybody in the medical field, it seems like every job or career or organization out there kind of has their own slang, their own lingo. Firefighting has a million different acronyms. I'm actually getting ready to do a video on a bunch of different EMS acronyms and kind of give you a primer as an explainer on what those are and what those mean. Real common ones that you'll come across. But understanding the language of EMS will help you a lot when you get into the class. It'll just make things click much more quickly. So that would be one thing I would recommend. I actually did a video on 6 tips for EMT and medic school. I think I released it last week. I don't remember, 10 days ago, something like that. Check that video out. I think it was pretty helpful. The big thing for you is you're just going to have to manage your time. I don't know if you have a family or if you're working full time or what you're doing, but time management's important just because you're going to be doing a lot of different stuff. You're going to be on doing ride time. You're going to be doing homework. You're going to be doing class time. You're going to be doing whatever else it is that you do in your life. So you're going to be busy. So those would be a couple big tips. I also see that Eric Heinestroza Ball Talk just donated $4.99 to the channel. Thank you, Eric. It says, hey, Mike, I'm 20 years old and have been on college for animal health. I lost interest and gained interest in the fire service. Is that okay at this age? Absolutely, man. Absolutely. You're 20 years old. I mean, by all accounts, you're still a baby. I mean, I think when I was in college, I was a freshman. I was a young freshman, so I was 17 as a freshman. and I started out as a business major. Then I went to a pre-med major. Then I went to what did I go to next? I think I went to communications, and then I finished with a general studies degree, which is a degree in nothing. It's pretty worthless. But oh my God, yeah, absolutely. You have plenty of time to figure out. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't start pursuing something and going in a certain direction, but good for you for figuring it out now. I mean, how many people wake up when they're 40, 45 because they did something they thought they were supposed to be doing because their parents told them or their friends told them or whatever. And then they realize, oh my God, I hate this, but I'm 45 and now I have a family and I have bills and I have these things at 20. No big deal. Seriously, that's awesome. That's awesome that you found an interest in firefighting. Eduardo Cervantes, I hope I'm saying that right. Just donated $4.99 to the channel. Thank you, Eduardo. Just got into Houston Fire Department. I started the Academy in September. Your videos helped me a lot in this journey, and I can't thank you enough. Congratulations, Eduardo. That is awesome, man. Good luck going forward. Make sure you watch some of the videos on probation and things you should be doing on probation. There's also a video coming out on Thursday that will be very pertinent to new firefighters. It is scheduled for Thursday at noon. Today is June 29th, so July 1st it will be published. So make sure you check that out. But good for you for putting in the work. That's awesome. I'm proud of you, Eduardo. Keep up the good work. And then Jeff Schaefer donated $4.99 with a looks like a laughing pear. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. Any other questions, be sure to throw them in there, Jeff. What else do I have? Diego Jaramillo asks, what is ventilation for when a structure is on fire? So ventilation, obviously in a fire, it's hot and there's a lot of smoke and there is a lot of combustion going on. And essentially ventilation is, there's different forms of ventilation. There's hydronic ventilation. There's I guess you would call it horizontal ventilation by breaking out windows. There's vertical ventilation by cutting a hole in the roof. But it essentially releases hot gases out of there. There's a lot you will go into as you become a firefighter about when you should be doing it, the pros and the cons of doing it, the different types of how to do it. But essentially it's a tool to get smoke and heat out of a building or to move fire a certain direction or in a certain place within a structure. There's all sorts of reasons to do it. That's an entire class in and of itself in the fire. So let's see. Jim Bob, what's up, man? I see you on here. I've seen you on here before. Good to see you. You said the department that I want to work for doesn't have ambulances. Should I still be a paramedic or EMT? Yes, because if you don't get hired at that department, a lot of other departments do have them. I would not pigeonhole yourself into only working for one department. Ultimately, if that's what you want to do, I mean, it's totally up to you, but I would not recommend doing that. I would set yourself up for success by making yourself as attractive to as many departments as possible. In a lot of cases, that's going to have some sort of EMS certification. What else we got? Switchlight Owner 2021 says, I love your videos. Thanks, Switchlight Owner. I appreciate it. I've never seen you in here before, so glad you're on the live. Let's see. Future Firefighter says, does your department use truck chassis ambulances like M2 Freightliner ambulance or internationals? I think so. We just got a new one from Horton a couple weeks ago. We have our two newest ones. The newest one is from Horton. The one before that, that's a couple years old or maybe a year or two. I don't remember, 3 years old now maybe, was I can't remember what it was. It was some company down in, I want to say Alabama is where they got that one from. But then we have 3 ambulances. The newest one's a Horton. The middle one is from that company in Alabama. And then the third one, I believe, is also a Horton. And yes, they are all on truck chassis with a box. Let's see. Poisonous Mango just donated $4.99. Thank you for that, Poisonous Mango. I've seen you on here before. Good to see you again. If you get injured during a department-run academy, such as tendonitis or a stress fracture, do they roll you to the next academy or just drop you? My guess is they would probably just roll you. You would have, every place is going to be a little bit different. My understanding of where I went for my fire academy is they would roll you into the next class, but they try and do in the best they can. I can only speak for the one academy that I went to. I've never been to multiple academies. I know there's people out there that have. But they're interested, especially if you're able to do the job and you're doing well and you're showing promise. They're going to want to keep you around. They're not just going to kick you out. Good people are hard to find in anything. And in firefighting, if you're a good firefighter, but it just so happens that you get injured in the academy, they're going to have an interest in keeping you around. They'll probably just roll you to the next class. But that's a really good question. Let's see. Valley, VALI, waiting to see if I pass the interview stage. Probably going to know this week or during next week. Okay, awesome. Congratulations, Valley. Keep me posted on how it goes. Colorado H2O, thank you for the $5 donation. I really appreciate that. It says, I got on full-time in Colorado, still going to volunteer in Wyoming. Thanks for the great vids. Congratulations, Colorado H2O. Good for you. If you see anybody in here that has any questions about, how your interview went or things you experienced, I got hired years ago. I mean, a lot of the things I talk about are obviously still pertinent. But if there's somebody in here that's trying to get hired in Colorado and they have any questions, feel free to jump in and give them some advice. This is what this is all about, is helping the fire service advance and move forward. But good for you. And that's awesome that you're volunteering in Wyoming. I'm assuming that's wildland firefighting. That is a tough job. Also, speaking of wildland firefighting, but thank you again, Colorado H2O, for the donation, and congratulations to you for putting in the work. That's awesome. For a lot of you that have been asking about wildland, I am still trying. I've spoken to the only wildland firefighter that I know, and he is checking on some stuff to make sure it's okay for him to come on. So I don't know if that's going to work out, which reminds me of something else I wanted to ask all of you about. And then I'll go back to answering questions here in a second. I need your guys' help. Two things. Obviously, everybody has seen or I'm sure most of you have seen about the structure collapse that happened down in Miami. I think it was a week ago now. Very tragic, very horrible event. A lot of people, unfortunately, are giving the search and rescue teams, the tech rescue teams, and the first responders that are down there trying to help and find victims and rescue victims, giving them a hard time, saying that they're moving too slowly, that they're not doing things properly. I am not a tech rescue guy. I am not a search and rescue guy. I don't really have that much experience with it. I know your basic ropes, your basic rope rescue stuff, and that's about it. I don't feel as though I have the experience to do a breakdown and explain what's going on, but I think it's really important for everybody else out there that sees these tragic events happen, get an understanding of what's actually happening during this. So what I need your help with is, if you are a tech rescue or search and rescue person and you have a lot of experience, and I don't mean, you took a ropes class or anything like that. I mean, you have been on a tech team, you have been on a search and rescue team for an extensive period of time, or somebody that has been on a tech team or a search and rescue team for a long period of time, please have them reach out to me. Send an email to support@firefighternow.com. I am going to try to find someone that has extensive experience. Again, if I'm going to have somebody come on and explain what's going on, I want to make sure that this person is an actual expert and knows what's going on and can explain the intricacies of search and rescue and tech rescue and dangers and what exactly is happening. So if you know somebody like that, please pass that email along, support@firefighternow.com. Have them send me an email. I will get them on the channel and ask them and give them the floor and let them kind of walk all of us through exactly what's going on with search and rescue and the tech rescue and the dangers of all of it. So there's that. The other thing I was going to ask you guys help for is, if you haven't noticed, I've started doing response videos on this channel where I'll take actual fire scenes or rescue scenes or EMS scenes and kind of walk you through it beginning to end, what's going on, some of the things you might want to look for, some of the things you might want to pay attention to. If you or somebody takes footage of fire scenes or EMS scenes or rescue scenes and would like your footage to be used, please, again, send me an email at support@firefighternow.com. Or if you're watching this later, please send me that email, support@firefighternow.com. I'd be happy to break down your stuff and use it on the channel, and kind of help the next generation of firefighters, but also give the public a better sense of what's going on a fire scene or an EMS scene. And the reason this came up is probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now at this point, we had a house fire. It was probably about 5 o'clock in the morning or so. We had a house fire in my town, and guy that's the captain on my shift, okay, so here's something you guys might not know. When a fire call comes in, and every department might do it a little bit differently, the way we do it is we have a shift officer who is in a command vehicle, is what we call it. It's an SUV. And what they do is they go to the scene first, and their job on that scene is to radio back to the incoming units, whether it be just us or whether it be mutual aid, whoever, what they see as soon as they get on scene. They get out, they do the 360 and give a full report, and then you kind of go from there. Well, at this particular fire, I was talking to him a few days after the fire was over, and we were talking because there was some really heavy smoke coming way several streets over, several blocks over. And so we were talking about it, and he said when he pulled up, the smoke was so thick in the street, it was hard to kind of see where you were going. Plus it was 5 a.m. It was kind of dark out. But as he was pulling up, he said that a bunch of neighbors were out and all sorts of people were out. And people came up and surrounded the car and were pounding on the car window, yelling, "Get the fire department. Where's the fire?" People were freaking out. And I get it, right? Because it's not like you see your house or your neighbor's house fully involved in flames regularly. But these people were panicked and they were freaking out. And he was sitting in the car trying to give his report and pay attention and try and see what was going on in the house so he can give an accurate report to all the incoming units and radio back, and then try to get out and go do his 360. And it dawned on me, I realized so much of society, and it's natural and normal that people are panicked and freak out because they've never seen that before. And God forbid it's your house, right? What a terrible experience to have your house burned down. But so many people don't know why the fire service operates the way it does. There's a method to the madness for almost everything that we do. There's a reason we do everything we do. So when people saw SUV by itself with no fire truck, because he's about a minute ahead of us, 30 seconds ahead of us, just pull up and a guy's sitting in the car looking and just kind of talking on the radio. People are like, what is going on? So this is why I'm doing the firefighter breakdown series, not just for future firefighters, but just for the general public of this is what's happening. This is why it's happening. So again, that's a really long-winded explanation for me to say, if you have footage or you know someone that has footage that would like that to be broken down, by all means, send me an email, support@Firefighter Now, and we can talk about in that going. So let's go back to the questions. Let's see. How should I prepare for the CPAT? I'm trying to join Laramie County. Okay, Cheyenne, Wyoming. Okay, Galaxy 654 is who asked that question. Galaxy 654, how should you prepare for the CPAT? You should be doing interval training. I know a lot of people aren't fans of CrossFit, but something like CrossFit, where you get your heart rate going and push yourself as hard as you can for a minute, rest for a minute. Go hard for a minute or two, rest for a minute or two. Go hard for a minute or two, rest for a minute or two. The CPAT takes all in, I think, depending on how quickly you do it, 6 to 10 minutes. You're just going to push yourself really hard for a few minutes. But that's what that's what firefighter fitness is all about. I used to be a soccer player, and back in the day, I had a trainer that once told me fitness isn't how long you can exert yourself, it's how quickly you can recover from hard exertion. And that's such a perfect way to think about fitness, especially firefighter related. You're going to be pulling hose. You're going to be throwing ladders. You're going to be climbing ladders. You're going to be dragging people. You're going to be doing all sorts of really hard, taxing things for a short period of time and then stopping. Short period of time, stopping. Short period of time, stopping. So the best way to train for the CPAT and just in general to be a better, stronger, more fit firefighter would be interval training. How important, Abigail O'Nate says, how important are ride-alongs? I've done 2 already. I'm 16, by the way. Well, congratulations to you, Abigail. That's awesome. At 16 that you're taking the initiative to get in there and go do that. A lot of 16-year-olds don't have that kind of drive, so good for you. They're important. I guess what do you mean by important? They're important in the sense of it gives you an opportunity to see what it's actually like to be a firefighter, because TV and movies don't do any favors. It's so unrealistic, it's ridiculous. But it also gives them an opportunity to see you and to get to know you and to get to know what your work ethic's like, show them that you are interested in the fire service, that you are eager to learn. It gives everybody a chance to kind of feel everybody out, see what everybody's like. So it's definitely important. Somebody earlier was saying that it sounded like they were going through vet school, and then they decided that they wanted to get into firefighting. you're already at 16 doing this, finding out whether or not firefighting is something for you. A lot of people get into firefighting and decide this isn't really for me, and I get it. It's not for everyone, but good for you. They're definitely important. It's nothing but helpful for you, and certainly for any future employers that may hire you. Hunter McDougall, tips for junior firefighters. I believe I did a video on this. I think it was called Future Firefighters Start Doing This Now, or something like that. I would watch that video for one, but the best tip I would give to future firefighters is, or junior firefighters, I'm sorry. I would say learn as much as you can. I don't have any sort of like crazy dramatic answer, but learn as much as you can. There's going to be a lot to learn. And so if you can get a leg up on other new firefighters when the day comes that you do eventually get hired as a career firefighter, that's going to do you so much good, and it's going to make the transition so much easier for you. So that's what I recommend for you. Fable 5 says, got on full-time somewhere, enjoyed watching your videos during the whole process. I'll continue volunteering at my other district as well. Keep up the great work. Fable, that's awesome. Congratulations to you for getting hired full-time, wherever it is that is. Proud of you for doing the work. That's all you that put in the work, so congratulations to you. Will Trump says, I am currently not old enough to become a volunteer firefighter. However, when I am old enough, I want to do so. Any idea how that will interfere with school? It shouldn't interfere with school. Most of the stuff that volunteer departments do is they'll pick 1 or 2 days out of the week, and at night they'll have some sort of training, whether it be EMS or rescue, fire training or whatever. And then obviously if you're in school, you're probably not going to be expected to run out of class and go to a fire scene. So obviously, you know, a lot of volunteering is doing it when you're available. And so if you're tied up with school or something like that, I don't think anybody's going to give you a hard time about that because you were in class. So you should be okay. So when I'm reading these, every once in a while, I'll be reading them and I'll have my place, and then all of a sudden it'll jump down to the bottom and I'll miss everybody's question. So I'm going to scroll back up here just to make sure I don't miss anybody's questions. Let's see. Jason Payton, I think this is where I was, says, I really appreciate the videos. They've been a big help, especially coming somewhere with no experience. I'm 19. I start EMT school in August. What are some things I should know going into school? So, Jason, I just did a video, 6 tips for EMT and paramedic school. I would definitely check that out. I talked about this earlier with someone about they're getting ready to start EMT school. What should they know, or what kind of tips? Become as familiar as you can with the language of EMS, medical terminology, understanding what's going on. It's just going to make it that much easier when class does happen, when your professor or whoever is talking about whatever is going on. Cardiac tamponade. If you're not familiar with what that is, that's something it's just a random thing that came to mind. I don't know why that came to mind, but that's something that will come up, and you will discuss that, and you will go from there. So just knowing, maybe not necessarily something that random, but if you have no experience in EMS or no medical terminology, just do something like that. Just read through it. It'll help you. It'll make the whole thing easier for you. Brad Root says, the fire department I got hired at doesn't allow you to wear anything with their logo on it outside of work. Is that typical? I've never heard of that. And I guess it depends. Some people take this more seriously than others. It's pretty rare. It's really rare. Like almost never do I wear anything in public that shows that I'm a firefighter. A lot of career firefighters are like that, but I've never heard of a department that just flat out won't allow it. In fact, I've never even heard of one that discourages it. It's just, at least where I work and a lot of the other people that I know in my area, it's just not very common practice. But I've never heard of them barring that. That is kind of odd. Let's see. If you are having trouble with the ER enter EMT, let's see. Per diem Twitch 118 says per diem firefighter here in Rhode Island. Just recently found this page. Awesome, keep it up, and nice meeting you. Would love a shout out. All right, Twitch 118, nice to meet you, man. Even though it's on the internet, this kind of sucks. Like I wish I could see other people and physically talk to other people, but hey, it is what it is. Let's see. Firefighter prodigy. Good question. Will bad school grades impact anything when I apply to fire departments? In my experience, no. And I say this kind of tongue in cheek because I do think that getting good grades are important. See, when I went through high school, I did okay. I didn't do great. And then when I was in college, I went to college to play soccer, and that was pretty much it. I did not focus on studies. If I could go back, I would have focused on them way more. Grades are one of those things that are really annoying when you're in school, but when you're out of school looking back, especially if you knew you could have done better, I encourage you to do better. Now, is it going to affect you becoming a firefighter? No, probably not. I don't know if your poor grades are a result of struggling in school or difficulty in school, or if your poor grades are a result of poor effort. But you will have to take some sort of written test. Obviously, going through the fire academy, there will be an academic part to that. EMT school, paramedic school, there will be academic parts to that. But the great thing about all of this is you can do it. There will be a lot of people that will tell you that you can't, or it's too competitive, or it's too hard. You can do it. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of firefighters in the US, Canada, and worldwide. If they can do it, you can too. So just because you had bad grades I've never heard of a department looking at your high school transcript and saying, we're not going to hire you because you got a C in algebra. I've never heard of that. But I would encourage you to still try and get good grades. Let's see. Racing Perp 1 says, hi there, I'm set on becoming a firefighter. My local department isn't hiring until the spring. What do you suggest in terms of taking the written test? The physical can only be done in the spring. I'm not sure exactly what you mean of whether or not you should take it. If that's your question of whether or not you should actually take the written test, my answer is yes. Take as many written tests as you possibly can. And even if you don't want to be a cop, go take police written tests. If you have to take civil service exams, the way a lot of places handle civil service exams is what they will do is they will contract that out with outside companies that will come in and do these tests. And they will use the same tests for multiple departments or very similar tests. And the more experience you get with something, it's like anything else. It's like lifting weights. The more reps you put in, the stronger you will become. Same thing with taking tests. The more tests you take, the more exposure you have to these things, the better it will be for you in the long run. The more experience you'll have with test taking. So yes, I would take the test. As far as preparing for the written test, on this channel, there's an entire playlist of several hours of whiteboard videos of me walking you through the types of questions, whether it be reading comprehension, mechanical reasoning, mathematics, algebra, geometry, all of that kind of stuff. Watch those videos all the way through. If you're really serious, they're pretty dry, right? It's like being in school all over again. But if you're serious about it, they've been very, very helpful to very many people. So check that out. Sky C asks, any advice for female firefighter recruits? Going through the process now, and there are 2 females in the whole bureau in my city. Yeah, well, first of all, good for you, Sky, for doing this. Obviously, if there's only 2 other girls, there's just not a lot, and sometimes it's difficult to be the only person doing something or feel like you're the only person doing something. So good for you for doing that. The second thing is whether you I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. Whether it's fair or unfair, or right or wrong, you will be held to a different standard. And unfortunately, there are people out there that will still want to see you fail simply because you're a girl. Now that's rare. That's not everywhere, but that is there. So my advice to you would be, give it everything you've got and be the absolute best in your class. Your goal should be to be number one in your academy class, academically, physically, through all the different tests, the battery of tests that you'll be doing. Hold yourself to the highest standard you possibly can, and do the best you can. It's going to be a different road for you than it will be 6'3", 250-pound former football player. It's going to be a little bit more physically difficult for you, would be my guess. But you can absolutely do it. It's certainly doable. There are many, many women in the fire service, and there are fantastic firefighters. I actually did a video recently breaking down a EMS scene, an overdose, and it was I don't know how Philadelphia does it, if Philadelphia has EMS and fire are separate, or if the firefighters are their medics and EMTs as well. But the two medics were females, and they handled the scene brilliantly. You will do well. Keep putting in the work, and yeah, that would be my advice for you: is hold yourself to the highest standard you can. David Roman says, any tips for someone that will start EMT class in the fall? Any good ways to prepare? Yeah, this is I would start practicing your medical terminology. I'm going to start doing more videos that are EMS related. I'm realizing there's a lot of people getting into EMS. I'm a medic as well. So I'm gonna try and do stuff that's a little more EMS related. Still, obviously, a ton of fire stuff, because a lot of people get into EMS to get into fire. But I know there's a big need for EMS out there. Jeff Schaefer says, in Ohio, is there a set number for the ride time, or is it depending on each area of the state? I'm assuming you're meaning in EMT or medic school. I believe it's a set ride time. I believe the state sets the requirements for how much ride time. So, okay, so if you don't know this, when you're going through EMT or medic school, you will be expected to do ride time or clinical time, either in a hospital or on an ambulance. You will usually have it split your hours. You'll have to do a certain amount of hours in hospital in something like a burn unit or a pediatric unit. And then you'll be expected to do a certain number of hours of ride time on an ambulance in a 911 service. And on those calls, or in that time in the hospital, you will be expected to see a certain number of cardiac patients, a certain number of abdominal pains or psych patients, or whatever. There's different, they have it broken down. I believe that is set by the state, but I think schools can set their own criteria as well. As far as other states and what their criteria is, I don't know. I am an Ohio medic. I had an NREMT. I let it lapse, so I am strictly a state of Ohio certified medic at this point. But going forward, you can keep your NREMT. You just have to take the test more. I don't even remember. I think I let it lapse a couple years ago just because we don't need it, or we don't use it where I work. Let's see. Todd Father says, I have an interview coming up, and the department made it clear to not shake hands with anyone on the interview panel or on the department in general. What other things can I do in place of a handshake? Good question. I think a lot of people are doing the fist bump or the elbow bump. But honestly, if they told you, to them, which, I mean, at this point, that seems kind of odd. It seems kind of weird that they still won't shake hands or whatever, and that they're going out of their way to make sure to tell you that. I wouldn't even do a fist bump or elbow. You know, people were doing the elbow thing there for a while. I wouldn't even do that. I would just walk in and say, hi, it's a pleasure to meet you, and then just go from there to kind of just give them like a little nod or something. I don't know. The whole thing's awkward. It's odd to me that we've been shaking hands for hundreds of years, And it's awkward now when people don't do it because you're so used to, hi, I'm Mike. It's nice to meet you. Let me shake your hand. So it's weird. There's no really way to get around it. It's weird for them too. It's weird for everybody. So I wouldn't really worry that much about it. Let's see. Aiden Leal? Yeah, Leal says, hey, brother, I have my first live burn tomorrow. Do you have any tips? I started cramping really bad today. I've been drinking a copious amount of water, and I live in South Texas, and it's extremely hot. Yeah, so it's kind of gross, but a lot of people, marathoners, will drink pickle juice to prevent cramps. I never did it. It seems way too disgusting for me, but a lot of people like that. If you're cramping up, that means you probably need some sodium or potassium, so I'd throw some Gatorade in there. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Firefighting's hard, man. It is hot in there, and people cramp up all the time. It's just something you're gonna have to deal with. I hope you do well during your live burn tomorrow, man. That's a pretty exciting time. That's a cool thing to see for the first time. So yeah, I would try the pickle juice if you want. It's pretty gross. Some other guys I used to play soccer with swore by it. Throw some bananas in there. Maybe have a banana in the morning before you go. I would do something like that. J Money 55. Thank you for the $4.99 donation to the channel. Says, I'm just out of high school and I want to be a firefighter, but I don't know how to get started. Could you give me some advice? It would mean a lot. Yeah. So J Money, I did a video on that. There's actually a couple. The one is called How to Become a Firefighter. And then the other one is called 8 Steps to Becoming a Firefighter. So the best advice I would give you is, if this is something that you're interested in doing, this is something you want to do, is I would do a couple things. First, I would go to an EMS certification. The reason being, they're very sought after in the fire service now, and fire and EMS are merging more and more as the modern fire service progresses. The second thing I would encourage you to do is get on a volunteer fire department. I think you just said did you just say you just graduated high school? Yeah, you're just out of high school, so I'm assuming you're 18 or close to it. Get on a volunteer fire department, start getting experience in the fire service, start getting to know people in the fire service. Go to every volunteer and part-time department in your area. And I would also call every single career department in your area to figure out if you need to be 21 or if you can start taking tests at 18. I would do everything you can to be around people that are where you want to be. You want to be a firefighter, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a doctor, go spend time with those people. So go to wherever it is that your local volunteer or wherever, get involved, get around it as much as you can. And that would be the best advice I would give to any 17, 18-year-old, or really anybody looking to get into the fire service. Future Firefighter says, what made me become a firefighter? So what made me become a firefighter is good question. So before I got into firefighting, I played soccer professionally. I got hurt, didn't know what to do. I was a trainer for a little while, and I really didn't like it. I didn't want to be around soccer anymore. And my best friend was living in Atlanta at the time, and he was working in one of the big ERs. And a lot of the Atlanta fire guys would bring patients there. And he randomly, just kind of off the cuff, said, why don't you try firefighting? The Atlanta fire guys seem pretty cool. You might like it. And that's really how it started. I went to EMT school. I started working in a hospital, doing moving beds around, transport in hospital transport. I hated that. It was awful. I actually was trying for a while to get into police, and every police department that I applied to kept denying me. And finally, I was doing my ride time. I finished EMT school. I went on to medic school. And as I was doing ride time, it's not where I work now, but one of the other local departments, I was sitting there, and the chief walked in, and I was in their classroom or whatever. And he said, hey, we're giving a test on Saturday. You should take it. And I just said, okay, that sounds good. I appreciate it. And he said, no, we're giving a test Saturday. You should take it. I said, okay, all right, sounds good. And he said, no, really, you need to be there. I said, okay, I got it. So I showed up. Ironically, I didn't do that well on that test. I didn't get hired there. I know some other guys that I went to school with that did get hired there. And that's just kind of how it started. I rolled right into the fire academy after that. And within 2 months, I got hired at one department. And then 3 weeks later, I got offered a job at the department I currently work at, which ironically is where I really wanted to work at the entire time while I was in fire school. So what drew me to it was all growing up, all I wanted to do was play sports. This is the closest thing in my mind that was the closest thing to a team sport and kind of what I knew from my entire childhood and young adulthood. That was the closest thing to it. And so that's what drew me to it. Growing up, I didn't know any firefighters. I didn't know anybody in the fire service. I wasn't really that interested in it. Quite honestly, it was never something that even dawned on me. I didn't even realize that until later on. So that's kind of my 90-second story of what got me into the fire service. Ty Barlow asks, this is pretty specific. How would one be able to practice comfort with SCBA and improve breathing techniques from home away from all the gear and resources? I don't know. I think they make those. What are those things called? You see people wearing them when they work out. I feel like it's really popular with CrossFit people. They wear those masks, and it's supposed to simulate elevation or something like that. I don't know how well those work. I've never worn one of those. I'm not big on having something strapped on my face. I don't really like it. But if maybe get it, and don't take that as me saying make your own homemade one, because I feel like that could just end in disaster potentially. Don't do that. But if there's something out there, I feel like I've seen those before in workout stuff. Maybe try something like that where it restricts the amount of air and makes it more difficult. Again, that is not me endorsing you making a homemade one. If you're going to do something like that, I would practice as much as you can at the department. And quite honestly, I would just ask the department, can I take an SCBA home and practice donning and doffing my gear? But if it's dirty gear that's been in a fire, do not take that home. Wash it. That's a big cancer risk these days. We're learning a lot about how much smoke and soot and just garbage from fires gets on your turnout gear. Do not take that into your house. Do not leave that in your car unless it is cleaned and washed. I would highly recommend that you don't do that. But yeah, good question. Indie Soul says, how difficult would it be for someone with ADHD to become a firefighter? I don't know. I don't have ADHD or ADD. I've never had that, so I don't really know I don't know how that would restrict you. I've never heard of a department not hiring somebody because of ADHD, but I'm sure there's firefighters out there with ADD and ADHD. But as far as what would make it difficult, I don't know much about the condition, so I don't really know. BJ Scott asks, what's better to do, volunteer or full-time? It depends on what you want to do. If you have a full-time career doing something else and you want to give back to your community, probably volunteer. Full-time, if this is what you really want to be doing, and this is what you want to build your career doing, or maybe you want to work your way up into an officer position, obviously full-time. There's pros and cons to both, but it really depends. Now News Now Network Constitutional wrote Firefighter 1 Death by Power. Oh, yeah. Sometimes those classes can be boring. Let's see. Trevor Reardon asks an interesting question. When pursuing a career in the fire service, is it better to have volunteer experience or be brand new and learn things their way? It really depends on the department. Sorry, I've been talking a lot. I need some water. It really depends on the department and the needs of the department, which is kind of a weird thing to say. So what do I mean? When departments have, especially larger departments, when they have a large contingent of experienced firefighters that retire or they lose a whole bunch of them all of a sudden, they're probably going to be more interested and more apt to give more credit to somebody that has some experience, whether it be they had 5 or 10 years on another full-time department, they're coming in as a lateral, or they have some experience as a volunteer. It's just going to be easier to get them up and going right off the start. But that by no means means that you cannot get hired if you didn't have prior experience. When I got hired as a career firefighter, I had no prior fire experience, and I got hired at 2 departments within 3 weeks of each other. I know lots of people that have been hired with very, very little to essentially no true fire experience, and I've heard some officers and chiefs say that they prefer people that are really green, and they can teach them and raise them kind of in their ways of how that particular department does things. And I've heard other departments say that they give more credit to people with a lot of experience because they can come in, they already know they're reliable, and so on. Either way, I recommend that you get some experience, if for nothing else, for your own sake. You know, what you don't want to do is go through all the schooling, put in all the time and the effort, and you go on your first fire call, or you see something that you didn't think you would ever see, and you just say, oh my God, what am I doing? This is not for me. Get your feet wet, understand what you're getting yourself into, and go from there. But really good question. Jesse Tarabochia says, what advice do you have for someone like myself who seems to be stuck on the interview oral board stage of the hiring process? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. Do you mean that you've had several interviews and you just aren't passing and you're not moving past that phase? Or does that mean that that's something you struggle with? You just haven't gotten past that, dealing with it? A few things. Number one, I would do everything you can to find out what it is that particular department passed you up on in the interview. Did they ask you a question that you should have known, something like, what's the primary role of the fire department? To protect life and property. Did you not know that? Because that's really important that you know. Do they think you just present poorly? Do you dress poorly? Do you look sloppy? Did you do something to upset somebody at that particular department? There's a whole bunch of different things. Fire departments are looking for someone that can also be a part of the community and represent the community well. So I would find out what you can to do that. The second thing that I would do is I would begin preparing like crazy. There are so many videos on this channel about specifically the interview, how to prepare, ways to prepare, answers to really, really common fire interview questions. I have several videos on this channel that is literally a 2-minute video of me answering one question. I have an entire video on this channel. It's called The Ultimate Guide to the Fire Interview. It's like an hour long, and I go through everything. I would watch all of those, and I would actually sit down and put in the work. And if you've already done that and you feel as though you're doing really well, and you're doing mock interviews and you're doing well, and you go to the interview and you feel like you're doing well and you're still not getting hired, I would try and find out what it is that these departments are passing you over for. Why are they doing that? So that's the advice I would have for you. Let's see. Ooh, Jacob Capiculi. I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right. I have to sneeze. Oh, just kidding. False alarm. So, what's my favorite thing and least favorite thing about being a medic? Good question. Least favorite thing. I have 2 least favorite things. 2 least favorite things would be the monotony of it. Working in EMS, you will quickly realize that a huge number of EMS calls are not actual emergencies. There's a lot of just basic lift assist. You just show up and pick people up. There's a lot of just the same thing on repeat. There's a lot of, my arm hurts. Well, how long has it been hurting? 3 weeks. Okay, well, what made you call today? Well, I don't know. It's hurting for 3 weeks. Like, okay. There's a lot of that kind of stuff, and just the general boring monotony of it gets old, in addition to the, I guess you would call it the abuse of the 911 system, people using it as a taxi service. That gets really, really, really old. The other thing that I would say is my least favorite part about it is you many times are there for very tragic or sad events. And I don't even necessarily mean huge, big, dramatic events. I mean standard, your standard day-to-day tragic events, like seeing a married couple that's been married for 60 years and the husband dies, and watching the wife who just realized that her best friend and husband of 60 years is now gone. That sucks. That's hard to watch over a long period of time. Of course, the more dramatic ones, things that happen with kids, psych issues, heroin overdoses, drowning. I mean, you get a whole range of it, but just seeing sad, tragic stuff gets really, really, really old and can really get you down. So those are my probably two least favorite. My favorite thing about being a medic is it gives you I'll tell you what it is. It gives you very, very, very practical knowledge. And it also, if you are a good medic, the best medics I've ever worked with are so calm under pressure. It's insane. It forces you to learn how to be calm in stressful situations if you're good. And it just gives you really practical knowledge for life. I mean, who doesn't appreciate someone that has good emergency medical skills? Emergency medical problems will be happening forever. They always have happened. They will continue to happen. So to have knowledge and skills that is practical and useful in a lot of situations, I think is a really good thing. So I guess those would be my favorite and least favorite. Let's see. Twitch 118. Oh, okay. So this is something. I was going to do a video about this. It says he's a certified RIT fast team firefighter and pro board certified level 2 firefighter. So for those of you that don't know what a RIT team is, I've been watching an unreal amount of firefighter or fire footage videos to try and find new videos for these firefighter breakdown ones. And when I scroll through the comments, it makes it abundantly clear to me why people need to have just the general public and population needs to have a better understanding of why the fire service does what it does. There was one of a RIT team that was standing by, and people were flipping out, talking about how they were lazy, they weren't doing anything, there's people trapped in the house. And I don't know what a RIT team is. RIT stands for Rapid Intervention Team. You'll also hear them referred to as RIC teams, RIC, Rapid Intervention Crew. It's usually 2 firefighters at a scene whose sole job is to wait. And if there is a firefighter that goes down, if a mayday is called, their job is to go find that particular firefighter and get them out of there. They are a rescue crew for the firefighters. The firefighters, the truck team, the engine crews, whoever, blah, blah, blah. They're in there looking for the occupants and doing their thing, putting out the fire, doing ventilation, doing all that other kind of stuff. The RIT team is there specifically for the firefighters. So, I saw him say that about RIT, and a lot of people, if you didn't know what a RIT or RIC team was, that's what that is. Let's see. What else do I have? I think it's repeating these for me. Ryan Burt says, any tips for someone to start the process of becoming a firefighter that's still active duty military, Still have a year left on my contract and want to put myself in a better position before I separate. Yeah, really good question. I get a lot of questions like that from people that are in the Guard, active duty, reserve, whatever. If you're active duty, I'm assuming by that you mean where you want to go be a firefighter is not where you're stationed. If that's the case, anytime that you go home or to wherever it is that you want to go to be a firefighter, I would put in the time to try and do some station visits if you can, or just call departments in that area and find out what the process is. What you don't want to do is you don't want to finish and get out in a year and then show up there and now you're starting at square one. Find out how things are done in that particular city, all the departments in that city, what the requirements are to become a firefighter, what the training's like to become a firefighter, EMS, what those certifications are. It's going to be different state by state. So make sure you know that ahead of time. If you have some sort of EMS certifications while you're in the military, I know it used to be that those were not acceptable in the civilian world. I heard that you would always have to still go through a civilian EMT and medic class, which makes no sense to me, but that's the way they used to do it. Maybe that was just in Ohio. At least that's what I heard. I was never in the military. But I would start finding those things out. The other thing I would find out is if you're able to, I've heard that there are now some programs that are transferable to the civilian world. See if you can get in those while you are still in. See about that. I would also start looking at I don't know much about military benefits, but I'm assuming there's some sort of GI Bill or something like that. Start sizing up different schools or potential fire academies or EMS classes that you can get in, and make sure you can get enrolled if they're already opening enrollment for whenever you get out. So those are some of the things that I would do. I would have all your ducks in a row so that 3 months prior to you leaving, you already know exactly what you're going to be doing and exactly what days you're going to be doing it. Trevor Reardon, when pursuing a career in the fire service, is better to have volunteer or not and learn things their way. I'm not sure if I feel like these are repeating. I already answered that question, Trevor. Essentially, it just depends on the department and the needs of that department. Some places like to do that, train people while they're really green and do everything that their way. Other people have experience. If there's a whole bunch of people that retire at once that have a bunch of experience, that department might be looking for people that are more experienced. It really just depends. I've heard officers say both. It really just depends on the department. Let's see. Patrick Froelich says, could you speak on the firefighter oral assessment mechanism? FOAM. I don't know what that is. If anybody could, I will look. I'm actually going to write that down. I'm going to look that up. I've never heard. I'm assuming that's got to be similar to an interview or some sort of automated interview where they ask you questions and you answer based on a given scenario is what that sounds like. But I'm going to look that up so I can find out more about that. Thomas Mathewson, applying paid on call to a Detroit suburb. Firefighter paramedic, mostly department. I'm currently a bartender. Would being an EMT be a good second job, or would a different type of job be better to avoid burnout? Thomas, so I'm actually, and I've been saying this for a long time, and I have a queue of so many different video ideas. These are actually, I was going to show you guys. Let me see if I can pull them up. I have all of these video ideas here, and one of them is side jobs. I don't know if I didn't know if you could even see that. Side jobs for different firefighters, good ones. I'm only going to speak to side jobs that I have had and how I think they would fit in for firefighters. But I would not be an EMT. I used to do that. I used to work in a hospital. I've worked on other ambulances. It would burn me out. Some people love it. That's all they do is EMS for their day job and for their part-time job. But I would do something else if I were you. I will try and get that video out here soon in the next few weeks. But yeah, that could easily lead to burnout. Let's see. I feel like a lot of these are repeating. Let's see here. All right. Harem Nice Guy. I think that's what that name is. I can't really tell. It says, hope I'm not too late. Thoughts on EMT, then fire versus EMT, paramedic, then fire. EMT, paramedic, fire is what I did. I recommend that to people. If you can, do them both at the same time. I know several people that have gone through EMT and fire at the same time, or paramedic and fire at the same time. I would recommend EMS prior to going into fire, just because it will help you more in the future. Good question, though. The Godfather friend of Rocky says, what are the requirements for becoming a firefighter? It really depends on where you live. 18 or older, high school diploma or GED, usually no felonies on your record, no heavy criminal records. You have to have a driver's license because at some point you will be expected to drive a very expensive, large vehicle. And if they can't trust you in your own car, they're not going to trust you in that. What else? It just depends on where you are, depends on where you work. Abby Schroeder donated $9.99 to the channel. Thank you, Abby. I appreciate that. If you have a question, be sure to throw it in there. I will certainly look for it. What else? Why does it? This thing keeps. I'm sorry for doing this. This thing keeps jumping around. I keep losing my spot as to where your guys' questions are. Victor Adam asks, what would be the most useful information to self-study pre-Fire Academy? Honestly, what video was it? I did a video on I think it's called What to Expect in the Fire Academy. Look at that video, and in the links in that video, I put links to just two very common fire textbooks, and very well maybe the one that you have to use when you go through the Fire Academy. I would just rent one of those books, maybe go to the library, or if you want, just buy the book. You can buy used ones or previous editions and just skim through it. If that's something you want to do before you get into the Fire Academy, I would just start doing that. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Josh Shively says, between my full-time ENT job at an ER and my own volunteer firefighter position, I work anywhere from 60 to 90 hours a week. Any advice on how to avoid overworking myself while I try to get a full-time firefighter job? No, I wish I did. Yeah, it's for you're not alone, by the way, Josh. I know a lot of people that did the EMS volunteer / part-time firefighter grind for years before they got on somewhere as a career firefighter. And that is tough. I was fortunate I never had to do that. But I feel for you, man. That is tough. And yeah, I don't have any tips to avoid overworking. I would just say, keep hustling your ass off, keep studying, keep taking all your tests. And I want to encourage you to keep working. Good for you for putting in the work. Most people would quit at this point, but good for you for doing that. Jason Payton says, what if I'm the more introvert type? I like to sit back and listen and think. That comes in handy when learning, but I'm worried about fitting in with the crew. Good question, Jason. So, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to be an introvert. So a couple things. I did a video on fitting in with a crew, and I bet you can guess what the name of the video is. It's how to fit in with a new group or a new crew or something like that. I would watch that, but as a new firefighter, you sitting back and not being the person that feels the need to be the center of attention, obviously not all extroverts are like that, is going to be a bigger asset to you than someone that just can't help themselves from talking constantly. It's funny, I use the expression in several of these videos, you learn more when you talk less. And nowhere is that more true than in a fire department on your first little bit. Obviously, I'm assuming, Jason, that you have, and I don't mean this in a mean way, basic social skills. You're able to converse with people when spoken to, but you're just not the person that feels the need to constantly be out there talking. And that is a good trait to have when you're new. I'm sure you'll fit in just fine. Just be decent to people, right? Treat people like you want to be treated. Take an interest in the people that you work with. Ask them questions about themselves and the department. Ask for their advice. Most firefighters, not all, but most firefighters would be more than willing and more than able to help new people on their crew. It only helps the crew, which in turn helps everybody individually. But as long as you can do that and you can show an interest in the people and be a reliable person and not take things personally when people play prank. You know, the first department I got hired at, it was one of my first few days, and I actually talk about this in a video. It was like the first couple weeks or something like that. They took the slats out of the bottom of my bed, my bunk, and I didn't know. And I came back late from an EMS call, and I got in bed, and the bed, you know, the mattress just kind of like slammed down a foot. It wasn't high off the ground. If you're the type of person that something like that, like you just can't deal with it, you're going to really struggle. They're going to try and test your boundaries, see what you're like, see what makes you tick, kind of push you, because they want to get to know you and they want to know where your boundaries are, and they want to get to see if you're the type of person, are you going to snap at something that's really not that big of a deal, or is you somebody that's going to roll with it and be able to, you know, give and take. Now, obviously, by no means is that me saying that it is in any way acceptable for any sort of harassment or attacking people on, you know, immutable characteristics, your race, your gender, things like that. But they're going as a new firefighter, they're going to kind of test your boundaries. That's part of the fire service. Some people don't like that, and some people can't handle that, and that's totally fine. But just know that that's something that's going to happen. You being more of an introvert, being a little more reserved, quiet, is probably going to be useful for you. So good question though. Ruben says, I really enjoy these videos. The test prep videos help me pass the written test. I'm working towards the physical test next. Awesome. Thanks, Ruben. I appreciate the kind words. Good luck in the physical test. Let's see. Ace Fernandez says, I have bad vision, but I'm planning on taking firefighter training program in college. Does my bad vision will affect me pursuing this program? Depends. It depends on how bad your vision actually is. A lot of departments will lay out what your actual vision requirements are. So as long as you're within those, you should be fine. But I also believe, and I'm assuming every department's different, many departments will have a requirement for corrected vision. So maybe you wear glasses or contacts, or maybe you've had LASIK surgery. I don't know. But I know lots of firefighters that wear glasses. I wear glasses, not all the time. I don't have contacts day to day, but you know, if I'm reading something or doing something on the computer, I'll wear glasses while I do it. So yeah, I work with a couple of guys that have very poor vision, that have lazy eyes, that have to wear glasses all the time, and they have no issues. So it really depends on your department, but I don't see, depending on how bad your vision actually is, I don't see why that would be an issue. Dylan Heckle says, will getting a paramedic license help a lot with getting hired? Yes. Many departments are looking for people with paramedics. Seth Kleckner says, hey, Mike, any ideas on how to recruit more volunteers? Our chief seems to view social media as an evil, not a tool. So I don't, ironically, this coming from a guy that's doing a YouTube live right now, I don't have any other social media. I don't do Facebook. I don't do Instagram. I don't do Twitter. I don't do, what are the other ones? Snapchat. I don't know. I don't even know what they all are. I don't like social media, but I can definitely see how that would be a useful tool to recruit, especially younger generations of people. It's obviously very popular with younger generations. You know what? I'm actually going to write that down. I don't know. I don't know what good ways to recruit are. I know a lot of volunteer departments out there are really struggling to find people and to retain people. I'm going to do some research on that. That's a really good question, and I think doing some research on tools and tactics and tips to help volunteer departments recruit more people would be good. I'm sure you've already checked it out, but I would check out N as in Nate, V as in Victor, F as in Frank, C as in Charlie, NVFC. It stands for National Volunteer Firefighter Council. Their website, I would check them out and see if they have tips and tools for recruitment. But yeah, I know it's tough for volunteer departments. So yeah, I don't have any good tips, but check them out. Brendan Davis says, how does the department decide what are you on the truck or? Very good question. Depends on the department. If you are going to a smaller suburban department somewhere where I work, you will be expected to do everything. We ride the squad, we drive the trucks, we are on engine crew, we are a truck crew, we are a rescue crew. We do a little bit of everything. If you go to a larger department, so the first department I got hired at had 5 stations and I think about 190 or 100 firefighters across 3 crews. And the way they did it was, of the 5 stations, station 1 was downtown, and station 1 had an engine and 2 squads, ambulances. And there were 6 people downtown in station 1, and nobody really wanted to be in station 1 because anytime station 1 would have to backfill and serve as mutual aid or stage for that other department, and that's where everybody started. It's just because it sucked. It was the busiest station. You'd always have to be going out and backing people up. So that's how they decided. How other departments do it, there's the cliche that people that work on truck companies are usually very large, strong people, and engine companies are usually smaller, also very strong, but a little bit smaller, able to get in tight spaces in and out because they're going to be operating hand lines. I've met people that are on truck companies that are not large. So I don't know if there's necessarily a rhyme or reason. It's probably based more on need than anything and experience. But that's actually a really good question. I see somebody writing something in Spanish that I cannot understand. I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. I can't understand that. Let's see. Oh, M. Willis. I didn't even see this pop up. M. Willis donated $1.99 to the channel. Also, Brendan Davis donated $5 to the channel. Thank you, Brendan, in case I didn't say that before. What should we do resumes for interviews? Good question. Resumes for interviews have your basic education, any EMS or fire certifications you have, and your job experience. I don't care if you worked at McDonald's for 18 and that's your only job experience for the last year and you're applying to a volunteer department. Put something on there. It's important that you have actual job experience for the sole reason of it gives a department, it shows them that you know how to show up and be responsible to do something. That doesn't mean if you're 18 and you didn't really have any work experience through high school that you still can't do something. Maybe you used to do side jobs for, if you're really young and you used to do side jobs with a buddy or a parent or something like that, cutting grass or whatever it is that you did, put that on there. You want to show any department that you are a reliable, responsible person that they should be hiring. So give them any certifications you have, give them any sort of work experience, no matter how sparse it is, and give them any sort of extracurricular or volunteer thing that you've done. I've had a lot of people contact me that are, I think it's Eagle Scouts, or I'm not very familiar with the Scouts and how that works. If you did that, throw that on there. If you volunteer at some community service group or something like that, throw that on there, right? A lot of firefighting is giving back to the community. So if you are community oriented, they will certainly be interested in that as well. Good question. Jonathan Fenoff, in general, do you need to go to college to get promoted to an officer? I'm going to say no, but some departments will require some level of college at certain levels of promotion. I've heard of several departments requiring at least an associate's or possibly even a bachelor's to become a chief. Where I work, they do not require that. At least I don't think so. But generally, to be your standard line officer, lieutenant, maybe even captain, no. I'm sure someone's gonna check me on that and write something in the comments. But all the departments I can think of around where I work, there is no sort of college requirement to become a line officer. Let's see. Is there an Ace Fernandez asks, is there an eye exam for taking this type of career? Yeah, you'll have to do a medical assessment before you get hired as a career department. They'll send you through. It's like going to the doctor. What you do once a year, you get a physical, take some x-rays, do a vision test, do a hearing test, do a stress test on your heart. They'll do an EKG, make sure you don't have any sort of obvious problems with your heart, just stuff like that. Chechnya, I think that's your name. Hello, I've been watching your videos for some time and I appreciate all the advice. I've been interested in becoming a firefighter for some time in Canada. Well, thank you for the kind words and thanks for watching. On that note, there is a firefighter specialization in the Canadian Armed Forces. Would you recommend that path for training and experience and all? Is it a good route to pursue to get a civilian job? So I don't know how that works in Canada. I'm sorry, but the advice I'm going to give you is based off of my experience with men that I know or have worked with that were firefighters in the military here in the United States. And yes, it was helpful to them. It did look good on their resume going forward. I worked with one guy that was a firefighter in the Air Force. I worked with another guy who I believe was he was a firefighter in the Navy. And yeah, it helped them. It gave them knowledge. It gave them experience. And again, like I told somebody else earlier in the live stream, it gave them the ability to see what it was all about. Obviously, civilian firefighting is different than military firefighting, but at least gave them the opportunity to see what it's like to grab a hand line and spray water on a fire, to go into a fire, see what that's about. And obviously in the Air Force and in the Navy, you're on boats, Air Force, you're on airplanes. Those are their own specialties of firefighting. I'm not sure in Canada if you're talking about the Army or how it works up there. But aircraft firefighting, airport firefighting is its own subspecialty in firefighting. And I'm assuming boat firefighting probably is too. But yeah, I think it would be good. I think it would definitely be good if that's something you want to get into. Sky C says, thanks for answering my question. I appreciate your advice. Definitely working hard. Well, good for you, Sky. Seriously, that's awesome. Keep up the good work. And I'm glad. Thanks for coming on the live. Daniel T says, being a firefighter sounds good, but it's just the sleep. I'm trying to sleep, I hear you, man. The lack of sleep sucks. That in my opinion is the worst part about being a firefighter. That is the worst part about working 24s. Especially if you have a family or you have other things that you do in your off time. When you get in bed at 10 and you get up at 6 normally or 5 normally or whatever your sleep schedule is, if you're up 2, 3, 4 times through the night, out running calls, back, out, and you don't sleep, that next day sucks. It usually takes 2 or 3 days to get back into a rhythm and to start to feel good again. But yeah, the lack of sleep is not enjoyable. Let's see. Ryan Yu says, hey, Mike, just out of curiosity, do you work with any Asian firefighters? I don't at my department, but I know 2 or 3 in the area. I think they're both Filipino, the ones that I can think of that I know personally, and I think they're both from, or their families are from the Philippines. But yeah, there's some Asian firefighters floating around here. I don't think anybody on my department is Asian, but yeah, they're definitely out there. Let's see. Shalom Fernandez. Any tips for new volunteer firefighter in a department with paid firefighters? Yeah, do your best to be as impressive as possible. A lot of times when combination departments need to hire full-time people, they hire from within. There's they try to frown on that. If it's a civil service thing, if it's a full-time department, but honestly, I mean, it's like the most common sense thing ever. If you're a department that's full-time and you have people that work there part-time and they've been working there for years and they work their ass off every single day, they get along with everybody, why would you not want to bring that person onto your department full-time? So if you can show up and be that person, it will give you such a leg up. And even if you don't get hired at that department, and let's say you test at a neighboring department or somewhere else, everybody knows everybody. So if you have the opportunity to impress people that are doing what you want to be doing, even if you work, I know several people that this very thing happened to. They work part-time somewhere. They kept testing at other full-time departments and at neighboring departments. And then when the time came, everybody knows everybody. So they already knew that these particular people that I know had a great reputation somewhere else. Trust me, if you are a volunteer department somewhere and you apply to a full-time department, that full-time department will call the chief at your department and ask about you. They will do some digging. I think there's some sort of rules or laws about that where they're not allowed to say anything negative, but everybody knows everybody. It might not be the chief, but it might be one of the line guys at the career department knows somebody else at your department. And they'll say, hey, you work with Steve over there. What's he like? They're going to find out if you have a bad reputation. So definitely this is such a good opportunity for you if this is what you want to do as a career to make a good reputation for yourself. Hans Glur asks, when is the right moment to go for EMT paramedic? Let's say I have been in an EMTB for 3 years and got my firefighter and already working for a department. I mean, is there a pay incentive for you to go to paramedic school if you're already working full-time as an EMT somewhere? Is there a career incentive? If there's not, and you're not interested in being a paramedic and you're already doing what you want to be doing, then don't do it. But if you're trying to get hired on somewhere, the right time is yesterday. I would get that as soon as you can, especially if you already have 3 years as a basic. I would definitely try and get that. But yeah, it just depends on your situation. All right, let's see. Future firefighter asks, this is a good question. Can you be a firefighter without all 4 limbs? I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen a firefighter without all 4 limbs. I know the NFPA has certain regulations. So if you're unfamiliar with the NFPA, they're a governing body that gives out, they call them regulations, but some of them aren't very realistic depending on the situation in that particular department. So they're more like guidelines for what would be the requirements. And they have an entire section on guidelines for medical requirements. I would check there, and I would check the specific department and what your specific situation is. If you're asking about yourself, maybe you're missing part of an arm or something like that, but maybe you have a prosthetic that still works. I don't know. I guess it would depend on the department and whatever their regulations are. But I don't think I've ever seen somebody without all 4 limbs that's a firefighter. Oh, good question. Hey, Ingrid, I haven't seen you on here yet tonight. Ingrid says, hi, Mike, just curious, are there any job-related reasons that firefighters end up having to testify in court? RE, tolerance for mask, do yoga. It's almost always, oh, okay, you're talking to somebody else. Are there any job-related reasons that firefighters end up having to testify in court? Yes. Firefighters might end up having to testify in court for several reasons. If there's some sort of arson investigation, it is possible that you will be called into court or at least deposed. And you will be asked about what you saw, what you experienced. After a fire scene, every department's a little different. You might be required to write out a written statement saying things that you saw, exactly what you did. I had to do one of those recently, and it's just a small little report. You might be required to testify if you are in EMS, if you are on a particularly gruesome scene that turns into some sort of criminal investigation. Maybe it's some sort of murder investigation or abuse investigation, especially with elderly people or child abuse types of things, or sexual abuse. You might be called in to testify for things like that. And then there's, unfortunately, the situations where if there's legal issues going on within the department, you might have to be called in to testify for something like that. There are certainly possibilities where you will have to show up in court, usually involving instances, and you will have to testify to what you witnessed and what you saw at a given scene, fire, EMS, rescue, whatever. But good question. Oh, Ty says, thanks for the videos. Keep involved. Awesome. Love it. Thank you. Josh Todd asks, how to get your EMT license? Good question. If you're not familiar with this, a lot of community colleges, a lot of vocational schools have a basic EMT class. If you go to firefighternow.com, it's my website, I have a list of, if it's not exactly every single EMT or paramedic school in the United States and Canada, it's pretty darn close. It's a huge list. It's broken out state by state. Whatever state you live in, go look at the schools, see whatever schools in your area, click on it, and go look into their EMT program or paramedic program and see about getting signed up. From there, they'll obviously take it from there, their admissions, but that's where you would get it. Jim Bob Cranman asks, if your city has railroad crossings, should you study the train times? So my city does have railroad crossings, and I don't know the train times. I don't know if that makes me a bad firefighter, but I don't actually know. It's probably a good thing to know, though, honestly. Yeah. Cameron says, hello from Canada. Hello up there. Let's see. Emily Plays says, I'm a super heavy sleeper. Can't wake up to alarms. What do I do? I don't know. Based on the alarms at my department, I don't know how it's happened. It's happened to me once. I slept through an alarm once, maybe twice. It's not very often. It's really hard to sleep through these alarms. Lights come on, people start talking over the radio and loud beeping sounds, and it's really hard. I don't know if you can sleep through that. I'm more impressed than anything. So I don't know how you force yourself to be a light sleeper, but also I don't know if you want to force yourself to be a light sleeper. I feel like that's a good thing if you're a heavy sleeper. Luis Monge asks, would it be easier to join the military as a firefighter to get a city or country or county fire job? Join the military if you want to join the military. Don't join the military if you want to be a firefighter, unless you want to be a military firefighter. If you have to do a 2 or 4 or 6 year enlistment, you could spend a couple of years going through EMS and paramedic school and go to a fire academy and get hired as a firefighter within that time. If being a firefighter in a city or a county is what you want to do, pursue that. Pursue the military if you want to be in the military. However, if you are in the military, it does look good, but it's not. It's certainly not going to assure you a job in the civilian world. Corey asked a really good question. Can you go overboard getting ready for a panel interview? What is the right amount of time devoted? Really good question, Corey. You can go overboard getting ready for anything. You can get yourself so worked up and so anxious and so freaked out that you can't think straight. That's happened to me for tests. That's happened to me for other things too. The right amount of studying is when you can go through and give your answers smooth, seamless, without any stuttering, ums, uhs, ands, long pauses, and you know your answers like the back of your hand. And you're able to give your answers in a way that if somebody gives you an answer, a question that's not exactly one you prepared for, you're still able to think on your feet because you've already thought through all the types of reasons you want to be a firefighter, the basics of the fire department. You've already done your research on the department. When you get to that point and you've done several mock interviews and you can do that comfortably, you're good to go. Obviously that doesn't mean just stop preparing. But certainly don't put yourself in such a panic state or such an anxious state that you're not going to be able to think straight once you get in there. So really good question though. Josh Todd, should I go for my EMT license before or after the fire academy? Before. Do it as soon as you can. Richard ASMR says, I am late, but hello everyone. Hey, Richard. Trevor says, sorry, I was behind on the stream. Thanks for answering my question. It was very helpful. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Frank, good to see you. Frank Kottner finally caught a stream. Thanks so much for putting out content, sir. It really helps. How do I become a red team member? Is there like a special forces stuff for the fire force? Hans, I'm not sure what a red team member is. I've never heard that expression. If somebody has heard of what a red team member is, let me know. Is there like a special forces stuff in the fire service or fire force? I'm not sure. What do you mean by special forces? There's like smoke jumpers in the wildland firefighting world, which are, I mean, it's what it sounds like. They jump out of airplanes and parachute into wildfires and start fighting the wildfire. It's probably pretty cool. There are a lot of paramedics that work in tactical EMS. They are SWAT medics. If anybody out there knows a SWAT medic, I'm trying to get one on the channel, so start talking more specifically with them about what that entails and what that's like. But as far as other special forces type of stuff, I mean, there are specialty groups you can join. There's tech rescue or search and rescue. There's things like that, but there's no sort of fighting force in the fire service that goes out and does anything like that. At least not that I'm aware of. Let's see. Devin Rockland says, good question, Devin. Do you think it's a fire service when you don't enjoy EMS that much? It depends on where you work. So I have a family member who is a firefighter at a very large department in California. And I actually talked to him the other day, and he was saying they are so busy all the time. And he's a medic as well. It's very rare for him to go on EMS calls. So if that's something you want to do and you want to get into firefighting from that angle, it would be good. If you want to go to the suburbs and you hate EMS, or it's something that you don't think you would be able to do for a very long period of time, it's the majority of what the suburbs do. It's the majority of what volunteer departments do. It's the majority of calls to fire departments are for EMS. So if that's something you just cannot stand and can't get past, it might not be a good fit unless you go to a big fire, like a large city department, and you're at a busy house, a busy firehouse. So, yeah, it just depends on you. Do I know any colorblind firefighters? I think I do. I feel like I worked with someone who was just talking about this the other day, and they were saying they were colorblind, and I never knew that. I don't know if they were pulling my leg or if they were serious, but I feel like I've met a couple people that are slightly colorblind in the fire service. Oh man. So this thing just jumped again. And so I missed a lot of questions, so I apologize. Good question. TJ Kidd asks, how long does it take to work your way up the ladder and become a captain or a lieutenant? So every fire department will be slightly different how they do this. And what they'll do is every place is structured a little bit differently. But sometimes the first level of officer that you will become is a lieutenant. From there, you go to captain, battalion chief, deputy chief, and then depending on the department, their structure, they're all kind of interchangeable, all the way up to chief. Certain departments do things differently. For example, the first department I got hired at, you had to be at that department for a minimum of 5 years before you were eligible to take the first lieutenant's test. Where I work now, the minimum is 3 years. It really depends on what you do. I work with people that have been officers for a long time, and they got hired as a lieutenant maybe 3.5 years in, and I work with people that have been on departments for 23 years and finally got hired as a lieutenant. Where I work, the chief is, I think he's 35, 36 maybe. He's only been there for 10 or 12 years, and he's a chief. So it just really depends on your department. It really depends on our department went through a variety of some pretty crazy circumstances with losing officers and things getting shuffled around. And so that's what kind of the timing worked out well for him. But some people go their whole career and they get hired as a lieutenant for the last 2 years of their career. Other people get hired right away and then they fly up through the ranks. Just a lot of it has to do with timing. A lot of it has to do with how good of a firefighter you are. There's a lot of things that play into it. I wish I gave you an answer, but every department does it slightly differently. Usually, you'll be eligible to take that lieutenant's test within the first 3 to 8 years. Yaz Al-Hindi, I think I'm saying that right. Does a bachelor's degree help you have a better chance to get hired? They might give you extra points on the civil service test, but outside of that, nobody really cares what your bachelor's degree was in. What else do I have? Let's see. Joshua Flowers, good question. How do firefighters cope with the stuff they have to see on a day-to-day basis? Do y'all have to go to therapy consistently? Everybody handles things differently. Some people do go to therapy, I'm sure. Some people handle it with healthy outlets through things like working out, yoga, meditation, all the stuff you would think of when it comes to dealing with stress. Some people deal with it in unhealthy ways, poor nutrition habits, alcohol, drugs, etc. There are resources out there for people dealing with those types of things: depression, anxiety, PTSD, the whole gamut of issues. There are some resources out there that a lot of departments either directly provide, or they will give you the information for resources that do provide those sort of help. But everybody's different. I have never gone to, I'll tell you about myself. I have never gone to any sort of therapy or anything for bad calls or difficult calls. Been on some difficult ones, some really sad stuff, but I've never felt that I've been in a situation where I need to go get some sort of professional help for that. But again, everybody's different. Another thing that they do for a lot of departments is if something really, really tragic happens, I think it's called CISD, Critical Incident Stress Debriefing. There are a variety of people from different departments or people in the area that come and they just talk to people about whatever happened. Some people take it really well. Some people don't take it really well. Everybody copes differently. Some people have no interest in talking to a stranger about something difficult or sad that just happened in their life. Other people, they need that. They need that sort of community. So yeah, one thing I will say though is dealing with particularly tragic things like that usually brings people closer together. That's why firefighters, and not every department is like this, and not every crew gets along perfectly well. But that's why you hear so much about the brotherhood of the fire service. That's why so many firefighters are so close with the people they work with, way more than your typical day-to-day job, is because dealing with that kind of stuff on a regular basis, usually any sort of adversity will bring you closer with the people that you go through that adversity with. Just look at people that go through and I'm not comparing firefighting to BUDS training, but that's just the first thing that popped into my mind. For Navy SEALs, right? Hell Week is just, it's hell. They call it Hell Week for a reason. Most of those guys come out of there and they're very tight with the people that they go through that class with. People in the military, people in sports teams, any sort of tragedy, difficulty, hard training, something like that usually brings you closer together. So that's how a lot of people deal with it. Adam Miskell says, McKessel says, hey man, I wanted to say I love your videos. I'm a 16-year-old who is currently getting into the fire service, and I'm doing my best to get into the community. I love firefighting, and I've wanted to be a fighter for 6 years. Love the vids. Thank you. I'm glad they inspire you. I'm glad you're here. Let's see. How long? Oh my God, I've been on here for almost an hour and 50 minutes. I'll tell you what, I'll go through and I'll grab a couple more questions. And then, as always, guys, I love doing these, getting to talk to you guys. I wish I could see you guys in person and physically talk to you. But I really like jumping on here and talking to all of you. Let's see. Shabadeep Singh says, I know you have done 1-4 degrees that benefit become a firefighter, but does just having a degree help being a firefighter, like a random degree in psychology? Honestly, no. Unless your degree is in like nursing or you're a PA or something along those lines. It helps if you want to get promoted down the road, if you work for one of those departments that encourages you or requires you to have some sort of associates or EMS or management or fire science degree. There are departments out there that do that, but it really depends on the place. But as far as being useful as a new firefighter, as a line firefighter, no. I can say that with confidence. I have multiple degrees and I don't use them at work ever. So yeah, just depends. Let's see. Volunteer Chicken McPimpin. Chicken McPimpin. Such good word or names. Volunteer firefighter with 30 hours until my firefighter 1. Love your videos, have helped me a ton. Awesome, man. I'm glad they help, and I'm glad you're here. Jim Bob says, can you be a firefighter when you wear glasses? Yep, I wear glasses. Not all the time, not day to day, but I have a pair of glasses. Let's see. Brian Alex says, does having mechanical experience look good for the fire service? Yes, because cars and trucks and vehicles break constantly. If you work for a really big city, they might bring people in to handle that. But for example, where I work, there's a guy at my department that is a mechanic, and his kind of role is to monitor all the trucks. Obviously, he can't fix everything, and sometimes very large trucks need to be sent out for specialty, whatever. But just the day-to-day stuff, this guy is a brilliant mechanic. He's a fantastic mechanic. But he handles all that. So yeah, if you have that kind of experience, I mean, there's a million little things that go wrong, a bunch of machinery, equipment. So if you know how to fix that stuff, yeah, that's real useful. Kai Salas just donated $5 in the channel. Thank you, Kai. I appreciate it. Have you ever come across any gruesome scenes that involve multiple deaths or body parts or something like that? How do you deal with that mentally? Yes, that is something that happens. And yes, that is something you will have to deal with. How do you deal with that mentally? I don't know if you're asking me personally how I deal with it. Well, I'll give you two answers. I'll give you how some people deal with it, and then I'll give you how I deal with it. A lot of people deal with that, like I said before, either in healthy ways or bad ways. A lot of people find a community. A lot of people become very, very, very tight with other firefighters or crewmates that they go through those experiences with, and that's how they deal with it. Some people feel the need to go speak to a therapist or whoever about the things they deal with. How I deal with it, usually, so if there's a call that's really, really bad, I don't particularly enjoy talking about it. I don't like, going over the details of it with people. I'm trying to think of the last really bad one that I was on. I think I'm the type of person that I handle it just by kind of going off, and I just want to be by myself for a little bit. Just kind of, you know what I mean? Just like I don't know what else to say other than just like take a time out, and just go be by myself, kind of recharge and come back and just move on from it. I'm a firm believer that there's no one way to do that properly, no one way to deal with those things. Everybody's different, and it's going to work differently for everybody. So it is what it is. It's an unfortunate reality that tragedy happens constantly, every single day. Somebody has to deal with it, and for some people, they just can't. And there's no shame in that if that's something that they just. Let's see. Good question, though. Kenneth Henry says, thank you for the videos. How do you handle difficult coworkers on shift? You ever had a time where you've experienced this? I got to be careful what I say on here. Yeah, sometimes it can be difficult to work with people on shift. And honestly, the best thing to do, in my opinion, is just deal with it, right? You're there to do a job. You're there for 24 hours. Be cordial, right? They don't need to be your best friend. They don't need to be somebody that you go on family vacations with every 6 months. Be professional, do the job properly, and move on. That's inevitable in any organization or any group out there. When you put a bunch of people, especially an organization that typically attracts type A personalities, all under one roof, under stress, under low sleep, and doing difficult things, you're going to have conflict. It's completely inevitable. And so when that's the case, just be professional, just move on. If as the old expression goes, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. Just move on. Try and stay away from that person. And if you have to deal with that person on scene, you need to you need to leave the drama at the station, and you need to be a professional in a fire scene, EMS scene, or whatever. And then once it's over, just kind of go your separate ways. Honestly, I don't really know of any other better way to deal with it given the situation. Abby, thank you again for donating $1.99 to the channel. I appreciate that, Abby. What else? Let's see here. Oh, Sheldon Lewis just donated $5 to the channel. Thank you, Sheldon. I appreciate it. It says, how hard were the academic tests in the academy? How hard did you have to study? Any tips? The academic tests in the academy were not hard. I'm going to be honest with you. The written tests were not hard at all. If you pay attention in class, do the homework assignments, read through it. You're going to do fine on the academic side of it. The difficulty of the fire academy comes from what you do outside of the classroom and just dealing with entirely new situations. If you've never been in a paramilitary organization where they're going to expect you to be at attention and order and yell at you, all of those types of things, that's where you'll probably struggle. If you're overweight and out of shape and can't physically keep up with the demands of the job, that's where you're going to struggle. But as far as the academic part, you're good. You should have no problems with that. Let's see. Shabadeep Singh says, I have a beard clearly, so I plan to go to the wildland side. Please make a video on wildland firefighting. Yeah. If any of you know somebody that has a boss and a very experienced wildland firefighter, have them send me an email. support@firefighternow.com. What else? David Tricaci says, taking a scenario situation only based interview for Austin in 2 weeks. Any tips? Thanks in advance. That's a really, I guess that's a more extensive question. However, what I would do if I were you is there's several videos on this channel, one of which is called the How Questions. It's like an old video. It's one of the first videos on this channel where I go how questions. I break interview questions into who questions, what questions, why questions, and how questions. And how questions are the scenario questions that put you in some sort of moral or ethical decision. You see a firefighter coworker steal while you're doing overhaul. What do? How do you act? You find out drugs or alcohol in somebody's locker. What do? How do you act? Because the scenarios can be so different, it's hard to give one sort of tip of do whatever. Well, I guess the best tip, and I don't know how helpful this is, trust your gut to do the right thing. A lot of times in these scenario-based questions, they will ask you questions to see if they'll put you in a situation where they want to see, are you going to do the right thing, or are you just going to try and cover for your buddy or for your pal or your coworker, crewmate, whatever. Do the right thing. Even if it's uncomfortable, even if it might cause a problem for you, do the right thing. That's the best advice I would give you. Go watch that video. Go on firefighternow.com. There's a massive article. I think it's like 13,000 words that I wrote called 51 Fire Interview Questions. Actually, here, I'll put the link to it in the chat. That way I can make sure that you see it. And if any of you have an interview coming up, let's see. There it is. Go through and watch those. There's 51 questions on there. A lot of them are situational, and just kind of go through that. Those are the best advice I can give you without going through like specific things. The one says, thank you for your service. Thank you. I appreciate that. Shabdeep Singh donated $1.99 to the channel. Thank you, Shabdeep. I appreciate that. Wrangler Star on YouTube is or was a wildland firefighter. I'm writing that down. Thank you for that heads up. I've heard of that guy before, by the way. I think I feel like I've heard that name. Oh, awesome. And Insidious, I think I'm saying that right, says, evening, little brother. Thank you for the kind words on my comment. Digging the channel. The new guys and the potential new guys need this greatly. Thank you. Hey, thanks for jumping on here. So for all of the new guys that are in here right now, a guy like Insidious, this is exactly why I started this channel. He, if I remember right from the comment, you have 23 years on. You said something like you're 2 years out from retirement. I just recently did another response video to an actual structure fire, and he came on and gave a really detailed analysis of 33 years on, so he's got 2 years left. Detailed analysis of ventilation and giving advice. Read through the comments on a lot of these videos if you're watching this. There are a lot of very experienced firefighters like him and like others out there that give a lot. There's another one. It's Perry Captain or Perry Fire One or something like that. He jumps in and comments on a lot of them. This guy, if I remember right, he's a retired firefighter. There's so many people like these guys that have so much knowledge to give and to pass on to you. Respond to them on their comments. They would be happy to help you as well. I'm just one guy in one area of the country. These people are from all over the country. Respond to them, reach out to them. They're happy to help the next generation and pass their knowledge on. So thanks again, Sidious, for writing that on. I was so happy when all that comment. Adrian Kazakos, hi mate, been watching from Australia and just started the process down here. Appreciate the content and the advice. Stay safe. Well, thank you for watching me from Australia. One of my wife's best friends lives over in New Zealand, so I hope to head out that way at some point. News 603 says, please address compassion fatigue. I don't know how you guys can do it. Thanks for your time and effort. Well, thank you, News 603. Let's see. Oh, okay. All right. Insidious says the name is Latin and nickname means anvil. Okay. That's kind of badass. So please address compassion fatigue. News 603. Do you mean compassion fatigue as in you deal with things, the same sort of thing constantly? So when the public expects you to be all warm and bubbly, when you deal with somebody that treats you like crap, you're just kind of burnt out and you really want to, okay, compassion fatigue, also called burnout. Yeah, so you're just burned out. Yeah, so I did a video on that actually about six reasons for oh God, I'm losing my train of thought here. 6 common reasons for firefighter burnout. Saving the same people all the time. Okay, so dealing with frequent flyers. Yeah, so that gets really old. That goes back to what I was talking about earlier with the abuse of the 911 system. You will come across people that constantly call 911 for, I don't know how else to say it other than just stupid stuff. People that abuse the 911 system. My foot hurts and it's been hurting for 3 weeks. Take me to the ER. My back hurts. It's been hurting for 2 years, but tonight at 3 a.m. I decided now's the right time to call for the ER. You deal with that constantly, and it is, oh man, is it frustrating, especially if you get woken up in the middle of the night and it's 3 a.m. and you've already been running and doing all sorts of other stuff. I don't know a good way to deal with it, honestly, because man, is it infuriating sometimes. But yes, compassion fatigue, but it's really hard, especially now. Yeah, I mean, people are constantly watching you. You have to do everything you can to still maintain a semi-professional demeanor. Like you just can't lose it. But yeah, it gets really, really, really old. All right, Brian Alex, I think you've asked me 6 times here. Just having mechanical experience, great for the fire service. I think I answered this already. If you're the same person, yes. Mechanical experience is very helpful if you know how to work with small engines, trucks. Those things break constantly. I work with a guy that does that, and he's kind of in charge of that. So yes, if you know how to work with cars, vehicles, things like that, that is very useful for a fire department. Let's see. Oh, Brian says, oh, it wasn't here. All right, sorry about that. Yeah, no problem. Yes, mechanical skills will be very, very, very helpful. These things break constantly. It's really annoying. Corn Pop says, can I get disqualified for being colorblind? I'm slightly colorblind, but I see colors, but I can see colors. I'm slightly colorblind, but I can see colors fine. I took my medical exam and passed everything besides the colorblind exam. I'm a bit worried. I don't know. I think it depends on the department. I would check the NFPA guidelines, but again, not everybody follows all the NFPA guidelines. So I feel like I know somebody I said this earlier. I feel like I know somebody that's a firefighter that's colorblind, but I'm not positive. So it just depends. If they obviously pushed you through the medical exam, I'm sure you're in a good spot. Becoming a firefighter, is that a good way to get into SAR? I'm assuming SAR is search and rescue. Yeah, I mean, they have, at least in my area, they have regional teams that do that. Again, if you are somebody out there that has extensive experience in search and rescue or technical rescue, or you know somebody that has extensive experience that would want to come on the channel and talk about this Miami building collapse, I would really, really love to talk to somebody. I'm not a tech rescue guy. I'm not a search and rescue guy. I don't know enough about it to confidently speak on it. I would really, really, really love to have somebody on that has that sort of experience. If you do, give them my email, support@firefighternow.com. Karen Linares, hi from Wichita, Kansas. Really appreciate your content. Hi, Karen. What's that? Witold Lewandowski, is PTSD diagnosis from combat in Iraq a disqualification? Should I bring it up? It depends on your department. I don't think it would be a disqualification. But I can't say confidently how every department's going to deal with that. Should you bring it up? If you're asked about it, if you feel as though it's going to affect your ability to do the job, I would bring it up. If you feel as though that's something that you have under control and that you're able to, I don't know much about PTSD, then everybody has things that they deal with in their personal lives. So if that's something that you feel that you can control and you wouldn't end up being a detriment to your crew or the department, I wouldn't bring it up. That's just me, unless, of course, you're asked about it. The Weekend Space Mask. Good name. My first fire season out here in Arizona with goals of becoming a Type 1 hotshot. Not sure if I want to go full-time due to pay compared to other agencies also going to school as well. Any advice? Be safe. That sounds kind of crazy. The wildland stuff is something I've never done. Any advice as far as, I'm assuming you're asking whether to stick with wildland or go career structural firefighter. It's really what you want to do. Honestly, I mean, there's a million ways to make money. If you really enjoy the wildland, stick with the wildland. Yeah. Let's see. Asthma, like mild asthma? No, mild asthma, you should be okay. Let's see. All right. Okay, so these are all people answering the PTSD question. And thanks, guys, for jumping in to answer some of these questions about things that I might not know about. I'm just one guy in one department. I don't have all the answers to everybody's questions, so I love having people in here that have experience with other things that can jump in. Abdiel Sanchez says, have you ever heard about the Florida State Fire College? I have not. I'm not sure exactly what the Florida State Fire College is. I'm assuming that's one school or a fire academy of some. I've got the hiccups. Fire academy of some sort in Florida, but I don't know much about it. My first aptitude test tomorrow. What's your biggest tip? What type? I don't know what type of aptitude. Physical, academic. I'm not sure. How does it look trying to get hired with small traffic tickets or an accident? All right. Good question. Good question, Mason. So if you have a bunch of tickets, it's not going to look good. If you can't be trusted to drive your own vehicle, they're not going to be interested in trusting you to drive a $500,000 or $1 million vehicle. Now, if lots and lots and lots of people have gotten tickets, but I'm talking about you have ridiculous tickets, meaning you were going 85 and a 25 and you have 3, 4, or 5 of those within the last couple of years. That's going to look really bad. Accidents happen. That's why they're called accidents. That's not the end of the world. But if you have a really bad driving record, they are going to notice that, and they are not going to like that. Let's see. Andrew Skinner says academic. Study. I'm not sure what aptitude test. There's to the playlist on the channel. There's a what to expect in a written test for, like I said, algebra, mechanical reasoning, all that type of stuff. I'm assuming aptitude, it's mechanical aptitude. Watch that video. It's about 45 minutes long or something like that. It really has helped a lot of people do well in their academic tests. Yeah. Insidious. Relax for the test. Do your best and don't overthink it. Yeah, really. That's very good advice. Stony Totten says, thanks for your videos. Helped me land the job. Today was day 6 of recruit training. 15 more weeks to go. Just started EMT class. How did you study your textbook? What worked best for you? Stony, that's awesome. Congratulations for getting hired and for putting in the work. And now that you are putting in the work to the academy and you're going through EMT class at the same time, good for you. Proud of you for doing that. And thank you for the kind words. I'm glad the videos were helpful for you. Today was day. How did you study your textbook? Honestly, I'm not a textbook studier. I do better with notes. So I'm a copious note taker. I take a ton of notes. That's how I've always done it. That's how I've studied for anything in college, in EMT school, medic school, whatever. That works best for me. So that's my advice. As far as studying the textbook, I don't really know. The other thing I do a lot is I'm a big highlighter. I even have highlighters right here in front of me. I know people say that highlighting doesn't work and that's a bad way to study, but it always worked for me. I don't know why it still does. I don't know. That's what I did. Let's see. Carson Meglis. I start Fire Academy in August. Are there any tips or advice that you wish you were given before going through it? Yeah, saying that she's going through the academy right now, and what are some tips for her as a female firefighter? Aim to be number one. Aim to be the best in your class. Don't just aim for the middle to just kind of get by. Like, average impresses nobody ever. Aim to be number one in your class. I wish more people were out there saying things like that. If you can't tell, that kind of fires me up a little bit. It's 2 things I really wish people did. I really wish people were more encouraging to other people that were trying to do things that they are passionate about or want to pursue. And I wish more people gave the advice of aim higher. And I don't mean that in some corny sort of motivation pump up, but instead of walking into the fire, and I'm not saying you're doing this, I just get really fired up by this. Instead of just walking into the fire academy saying like, oh God, I hope I make it through. No. You're going to be first in your class. That's the attitude you need to have. So I wish more people gave people advice like that and encouraged them to reach for the top of the class instead of just make it through. That's what I would say. Hans Kohler says, you freaking rock. Oh, thanks. Andrew Skinner says, thanks. I was just watching one of them. How to deal with animosity between your career department and volunteer department. Irate genius. Ooh. Yeah, okay. So that's a real thing. There's a lot of, and I'm assuming this is what you mean by this, there's a lot of union full-time departments that really don't like fire departments. There are a lot of union firefighters that think volunteer or part-time fire departments are bad because they're stealing jobs from other potential full-time firefighters. Personally, in my opinion, I think that is utterly ridiculous. A lot of communities might not have the funding or might not have the capabilities or the resources for career and full-time departments. And because of that, they need to have a volunteer or a part-time department. Would it be nice to have a full-time department everywhere? Yeah, absolutely. But that might not be reality for a lot of places. The other thing is the issue of going after the particular individuals that volunteer or work at part-time departments. I also think that that's ridiculous because it is nobody's position to tell you what you should be doing for a career in your off time. And for most people that I know that work in part-time or volunteer departments, do so because that's the community they came from and that's the community they grew up in. And they're trying to give back to where they either live or used to live and give back to the people that gave to them. And I think it is wrong. I'm assuming I'm going out on a little bit of a tangent here. I think it is wrong for any person to look at another firefighter and say, because you're trying to give to that community by giving your time, your energy, and your resources to give back to this community because they don't have the resources that the community you work in currently has. I think that is wrong. I think that is dead wrong. And that is exactly how you push the fire service backwards, in my opinion, because then you start leaving these smaller communities and these more rural communities and these poorer communities behind because you're taking away trained, capable bodies that these volunteer departments desperately need. Somebody on here earlier was asking me about any tips for recruiting volunteers. These volunteer departments are dying for people. Recruitment and retention is such a problem for volunteer departments, and they need it because those people matter too, and those people's houses and those people's resources and those people's communities matter too. So how do you deal with it? Ignore it. I don't know. That's how I would deal with it. Sorry if I'm getting kind of frustrated. That's something that I know a lot of people around here in my area have dealt with. And every time I hear that, I just shake my head. It's just mind-boggling to me that so many people say that. And ironically, usually the people that pound the drum the hardest about how wrong it is for people to go back and volunteer in the cities or communities that they came from are the people that came up that very same way. They came up becoming a volunteer department. They came up being a part-time firefighter and got hired on. But now that they have what other people want or what other people do, they want to push them back down. It's very annoying, and I get very frustrated by that. So anyways, that's my answer to that. Poisonous Mango says, is it possible to attend PA school while working as a full-time firefighter? Are PA schools flexible as far as class schedules and rotation? Yes, it is possible. And I know that because I work with a guy that is a PA who went through PA school as a full-time firefighter, and he's a very close friend of mine. And I might see if he wants to come on the channel, see if he would want to do that, talk about that. He's actually a really interesting guy. He does a little bit of everything. He's a SWAT medic. He is a PA. I think he's a captain in the Army Reserves. He does a lot. So definitely one of the most knowledgeable people that I know. So, but yes, it is very much possible. Insidious says, I'm 53 and still in the field. Good for you, man. Let's see. Christopher Knox says, damn, well said. Thanks. Jose Thomas Fernandez says, I might get promoted to lieutenant soon. I know very well that a leader must encourage and motivate his crew on becoming better each day. But what would you consider critical abilities of any good leader? Whew. That is a really good question. And that's, I'm just trying to think. I think there's a lot of, good things that make a good leader, but I think two traits that make them the best are responsibility and service. Service, yes, you are in charge, and yes, you have the final say on things that happen, but the best leaders and the best officers I've ever met, whether it be in fire, whether it be in business, whether it be in other things, are always people that are there to serve their crew ultimately. And they do that by taking responsibility for everything. If something goes wrong on a fire scene or something goes wrong with their crew, they don't jump on that person and say, you're an idiot, you're stupid, you messed up, you did this, you did that. They immediately turn the mirror on themselves and say, how could I have trained this person better? Those are by far by far the best leaders I've come across. People that are willing to serve their crew and people that take responsibility for the decisions, good and bad, that happen with their crew. So, there's books that have been written on quality leadership. And if you're interested in those, I really, really, really recommend, I'm sure most people on here know who Jocko Willink is. He talks a lot about leadership. He has a book. Well, here's a Jocko Willink book. I don't know if you can see this. Oh, it's called Discipline Equals Freedom. That's one. I have another one. It's called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. That's one of the best leadership books I've ever read. Extreme Ownership. I would highly recommend that you check that out if you're about to be a boss. And good for you. Congratulations, by the way. Juan Herrera asks, what % of all calls were actual fires? How many fires did you participate in? It depends on where you work. Some, I was talking earlier about my brother-in-law that works for a big department out in California. He gets multiple fires every day. Suburban departments might get a few fires a month. It really just depends, and everything in between. Some volunteer departments where there's very low population, you might get 1 or 2 fires a year. It really just depends. Let's see. Yeah. Insidious says, simple answer, a true lack of complacency. Be the example you wanted when you were new. Good answer. Let's see. Richard ASMR says, can paramedics work with firefighters without becoming a firefighter? Yeah, at some departments, they will do that. They'll strictly have medic crews that don't go on any fire calls, but not all fire departments do that. It just depends. Usually you'll find that in larger-ish departments. There's some medium-sized departments in my area. There's one that I can think of right offhand that does that. But I do know that there's several departments out there that have separate EMS and fire agencies. Cleveland is one of those. There's Cleveland EMS, and then there's Cleveland Fire. And a lot of times they work side by side. They're two separate things, but a lot of times they work side by side. Karen Linares says, what can help overcome nervousness of the unknown while going on a fire EMS call? You're going to be nervous a lot on your first few calls as a new firefighter or EMT or medic, just until you start seeing things regularly and start having an idea of what to expect. You're going to be nervous. The best thing to do that is training, making sure you know your protocols inside and out. Okay, you show up at a full arrest. What do you do? What's the first thing? Okay, you show up at a house fire, some sort of structure fire. What tools are you grabbing? Are you grabbing the irons? Or are you grabbing a hook? Are you pulling a pre-connect? All this, going over those things again and again and again and again and again are what's going to help you be less nervous. Jose Tomas Fernandez. Thanks a lot. I will read some of those books for sure. I appreciate it. Yeah. Glad you, I hope you found that helpful. All right, guys. One or two more questions. Is the fire training in Canada recognized in the States? I don't know. I know even within states, from state to state, they don't recognize fire training. I looked into becoming a Florida firefighter at one point, and they do not accept Ohio stuff. I don't know why. I know everybody has their own standards that they want to hold, but you would think, yeah. Short answer, I'm not sure if Canada and US have reciprocity for fire training. Christopher Knox. All right, here's the last one. I'll answer this one just because I've been on here for almost 2.5 hours. Is firefighting something that you really wanted to do? What were your other ideas for a career? What made you realize this is where you wanted to be? So good question. I actually answered this something similar a little bit earlier. Is firefighting something that you really wanted to do? No. Growing up, I was a soccer player. That's what I always wanted to do. I wanted to play in the pros. Went to college, played all through college, played a year or two in the professional leagues, and got hurt, and that was it. I didn't know anybody in the fire service. I had no real interest in being a firefighter. That just wasn't something that was ever on my radar. After I was done playing, I was trying to figure out what to do next, and a friend of mine told me to just get in, try firefighting, see what it's like. They seem like they're decent. I got into it. I started with EMT school, then I went on to medic, then went on to fire. Long story short, I tried a bunch of police tests and I just couldn't get hired anywhere. And then went through fire school. And what drew me to the fire service was the fact that it was the closest thing that I knew of out there that was close to a team sport, meaning that you are with a group of people who have to work together to achieve whatever that common goal is. And that's what drew me to it. That's what really brought me in. And that's what made me really enjoy it. So yeah, no, people come from all sorts of backgrounds. That's not something I ever really planned on doing growing up, but yeah, here I am. So, all right, let's see. Richard, hey, soccer's my favorite sport. It's a good sport, man. I just recently finished my Fire 1, sir, on my way to finish my Fire 2. Do you have any recommendations for someone who has no experience prior to looking for a department to work for? Do you have any recommendations for someone who has no experience prior to looking for a department to work for? Get on a volunteer. They're really looking for people. They're really, really looking for people. I would try and get as much experience at a volunteer department. You got to get experience at some point. Lots of people get hired with no experience. When I got hired at my career department, I had no real fire. I worked as a medic in an ER prior to that. But I had no fire department experience to speak of. So they will still hire you without experience, but they're going to want to train you their way. Hey man, thanks for your service on your time, child. Let's take you. All right. Well, thanks, Christopher. All right, guys. Well, thank you again for showing up for I think this is the 8th one now. I love coming on here and talking to all of you. I mean, we're 2.5 hours in. I could definitely do this for a lot longer, but thank you for jumping on. I will have another video out this Thursday here in a couple days. If you are a new firefighter or about to get hired or thinking about getting hired, you're definitely going to want to watch this one. It goes over some very specific things that you're going to want to be doing once you get onto a department and what will be expected of you. So as always, guys, you guys have a good night, and I will see you guys soon.